nothing more than a fill-in between Broncos games. And summer is a long purgatory as we await the start of the footy season when the Broncos once again take the chills off our winter weekends. It was indeed a long wait for the season of '93 when the Brisbane Broncos faced the hardest task in rugby league football. It was a task that they'd set themselves through their own monumental performance in 1992. The Brisbane Broncos were defending the cup.
Celebrate. They've won the Winfield Cup for the first time. They've only been in it for 5 years. A champion side, nobody can deny that.
September 27, 1992. No matter what height the Broncos scale in the years to come, it is that date which will remain indelibly on the minds of every Brisbane fan. The grandest of all grand occasions, their first premiership. The prize for perfection, though, is pressure. And after some hard and fast celebrations and a team trim, the players had to get back into serious mode. The Winfield Cup was one thing. But could they, just 1 month later, in the cold and fog of Central Park, Wigan, prove themselves the best in the world? It was an emphatic yes, with a 22-8 win over the Cherry Pickers. A bit of R&R. And then it was back to that familiar park.
Okay, let's go!
With the boardroom bickerings finally solved, the Broncos moved shop from Lang Park to QE2 and the newly named ANZ Stadium. The launch of season 93 came from their new home. And a boost for morale too. The game's most popular player would be a Bronco for the rest of his career.
The great news for us and the great news for Queensland and Brisbane is that Alan Langer signed a 5-year contract with us.
I got Reeves in a headlock and told him how much I wanted.
That news was an appropriate curtain raiser as the Broncos opened their premiership defence against Cronulla at Caltex Field. It was obvious none of the backline combination had been lost during the off-season.
Comes up to Wrigley, got away from Wrigley, got it away to Hancock, he got away from Eddinghausen, he's in for the try in the corner.
Brisbane safely home 1910 after Kerrod Walters and Terry Madison laid the foundations for the skipper.
Alan Langer backing up, cuts away from Higgins, and a little bit of magic from Alan Langer to finish it off.
The Premiers then headed to Auckland for a Friday night special against Canterbury. The Bulldogs turned on some entertaining football to justify sacrificing their home ground advantage.
Now, here's Goodwin. Goodwin's 8 metres out. Gives the pass for Dimmick. It's a try.
Veteran Terry Lamb was inspirational. His lead-up work and Jason Smith's miraculous final pass, the highlights of a quality try, as the entertainers of the 80s sounded an early warning with a 20-10 upset.
5 metres out. Jason Smith gets involved again. Goes for the line. Gets it away. Williams puts it down.
Change is always difficult and emotional. But for the greatest game of all, I think we will see an excellent home at QE2.
Economics and the now notorious beer war necessitated the Broncos' move in '93 from their home of 5 years, Lang Park, to the impressive QE2 Stadium, site of the 1982 Commonwealth Games. The arena was renamed ANZ Stadium after the project's principal sponsor, and $10.25 million was allocated to upgrade the facilities in a joint venture between the Broncos and the Brisbane City Council. The fans' response was overwhelming, with 8,000 season tickets pre-sold. All was in readiness for the Broncos' first home game against Parramatta on the 28th of March.
It therefore gives me great pleasure now to declare open the home of the Brisbane Broncos, ANZ Stadium.
It was a gala event, with some 55,000 fans on hand to launch the Broncos' new home. The opening celebrations were soured, however, when Parramatta gate-crashed the party with an upset win over the Premiers.
The Eels' defence is solid.
The post-match assessment showed the stadium suffered. The larger-than-expected crowd complained of long delays and inadequate facilities.
They all turned up early, all wanted a hot dog at 12 o'clock, and we just weren't ready for them. And it was a great learning curve for us, and very thankful for the people of Queensland that stuck with us and supported us after that game. I think you can make a mistake once, but if you keep doing it, it's very hard to expect people to keep coming back. We did get it right at the stadium. We promised we would, and it was indicated by our last game with 58,000 there. So really, the people of Brisbane have just been fantastic to us. We can't thank them enough.
The Broncos kept their promise to rectify the opening day problems, much to the delight of their loyal fans.
We've enjoyed the day, and it's been, we're sitting in the stand, and you couldn't wish for better, I don't believe.
The logistics of running such an enormous facility are mind-boggling. 600 staff are required each match day to ensure the needs of the public are well catered for. From manning concessions to running security, each performs a vital task. Whether in the outer or the corporate boxes, special attention is paid to meet everyone's requirements. On the 18th of June, the lights went on at ANZ Stadium, and Brisbane's rugby league faithful responded. The local derby against the Gold Coast attracted a crowd of 57,000. The Broncos' biggest home crowd was reserved for the final game of the season against St George. Despite the inclement weather, some 58,000 turned out to witness the grand final replay. By the end of round 22, the Broncos had attracted close to 500,000 people through the gates. They averaged 42,000 a game, double the previous year's figures, a stinging rebuttal of the Lang Park argument.
There were many knockers, as you say, some of them in the state government. I guess Queensland Rugby League were probably the biggest knockers because they had a vested interest in preserving and protecting Lang Park. I think it's fair to say in retrospect that they were stupid in their decision making. If they had cared for the Broncos at Lang Park and gone into a partnership with them, they would have all done much better.
A glowing testament from the people of Brisbane and Queensland that the move to ANZ Stadium was the Broncos' best move yet. The cauldron was prepared. Parramatta was to be the first sacrificial lamb. The Broncos look set to celebrate in style at their new home.
Neil makes the extra man. He also makes the break, and he'll go all the way.
But the Eels soon spoiled the festive mood, pulling off a 12-10 upset.
Galbraith turns it to Michael Butner. That time they got it down.
Against Canberra, 46,000 gathered at ANZ to spur on the home side. Lazarus was lurking out wide against his old club and crashed over in the tackle of Australian teammate Mal Meninga. The Broncos won an entertaining match 12-10. John Plath coming off the bench to score a crucial touchdown.
Very, very good memories. I mean, that's when things really started to come together for me this year. That was the first real major thing I've done in first grade in 6 years with the club, so it was a pretty good feeling.
Let's get to the way to Johnny Plath. Plath coming his way through. He'll score. Johnny Plath over underneath the post.
2 losses in the first month of '93 suggested a premiership hangover. Could the Broncos buck up in the coming rounds and keep on track their defence of the cup? March 6, 1988. There were plenty of critics hoping to see the Broncos go lame in their first appearance in the New South Wales League. The sceptics would have been disappointed.
Lewis, they hang on, Lewis is going to score! Oh, Lewis has done it so easily!
It was a full-on stampede as Manly Warringah was trodden into the Lang Park turf. 44 points to 10, the Broncos were here to stay.
After the smoking Joe Gilroy!
In round 5 at Leichhardt Oval, the Broncos showed against Balmain how to let the ball do the work.
Stay with them. Renoff got the rebound. Play on. 6 more tackles from Hancock. The pass off to touch forward. Renoff elusive. He is a tremendous stepper. Steve Renoff.
In a dour encounter won 12-6, Brisbane's big match players made the difference. Hancock's surge finished off by Langer.
And they're very slow to recover here, the Balmain Tigers.
Now it's Walters. Right through. Langer for the line, and Langer will score.
A week later, the Broncos returned to ANZ for the game against Penrith. Willie Cahn's chase too hot for Graham Mackay.
Still going, puts a little kick and he's taken out. Mackay's back there. Touchdown!
That was a touch of individual talent from one of the game's best finishers. But this try, which started inside the 20-metre zone, shows just how potent the Brisbane side is in attack.
This is Kevin Walters up over the quarter line. Back it comes to Madison, and Madison will score.
Madison's second try helped the home side to an emphatic 34-8 win over the Panthers.
Our ability to attack comes from a whole variety of sources, and basically it comes from Wayne Bennett. That's where I think it comes from. He understands defence and attack, and has always recruited great players around him who can do wonderful things in attack.
On Anzac Day, Brisbane faced the unslain Dragons in a replay of last year's grand final. Use of the angles, just the geometry for an attacking genius like Steve Renouf.
Renouf's into space. The flying Renouf goes in to score.
A little bit of Alfie magic also went a long way.
To Alan Langer. Langer steps and goes over the line. Oh, so easy.
Kerrod Walters was cited for this tackle and later suspended for 2 matches as the Broncos broke a 14-all deadlock by doing what they do best.
Dummies inside, goes outside, and Renouf, he puts it down.
We thought they had a point to prove after we beat them pretty convincingly in the grand final, and also it marked the start of the State of Origin series. Was in the next weeks to come on, so we really wanted to get a win behind us before all the players went away into camp, so it was a very important game for us, and luckily we stuck to our guns and got the win.
Too far back, don't knee in the back.
A record Broncos contingent of 11 lined up for Origin 1. It might have been more had Kerrod Walters' rep career not been put on hold.
Out they come. Mal Meninga brings about the Queenslanders.
Club insiders remember the May 3rd encounter at Lang Park as the Origin from hell. The Blues won 14-10, their first win at the Cauldron since 1987. Worse still, the match claimed Steve Renouf and Andrew Gee as its victims, both out for long spells.
At the end of each season, we come under the microscope in terms of semi-final football. We're expected to do well in there, and we're under that terrible stress to do well there. Yet, for 6 to 8 weeks preceding that, we've lost all our players completely and utterly gone, and being ravaged by additional games that we don't really need them to go through. And I think that equation is unbalanced at the moment.
To suggest Mick Hancock had an off night would be the understatement of the year. Hancock's horror at the 20-minute mark of the second half robbed Queensland of momentum that may have produced victory.
Done! Absolutely in front of the post. Stupid play by Mick Hancock.
Willie Cahn's performance was colossal, his try coming all too late.
Now Cahn steps. Can he get there? You beauty!
And now the big fella, Mal Meninga, takes the Maroons of Queensland out of their dressing shed.
The gods again frowned on Queensland 2 weeks later in Sydney. 7 Broncos involved on a night that all the tough calls went against the Maroons. A controversial omission from Origin 1, Trevor Gilmeister returned to add steel to the pack. Dazzling utility, Julian O'Neill also grabbing his first taste of rep football. Referee Eddie Ward could kiss goodbye his claims to the Barry Gomersall Award for loyalty to Queensland after denying Willie Cahn a surefire 6-pointer in the 50th minute.
Here's a try! No, he's offside! He's in front of the kicker!
He's dead set onside, it's a try.
No, it's not.
And after Kevin Walters gave his mates a sniff of victory, Mal Meninga thought Mark Hone was better equipped to secure that last-minute series leveller.
He's got 30 to go! He draws the defence, gives it to Mark Hone, and Hone gives the pass back to New South Wales. 16-12, it's all over. Lang Park becomes academic.
Despite his best-laid plans, Kevin Walters found himself the scapegoat for the second successive season, when the selectors met to choose a team, dead rubber aside, that might regain that 80s invincibility.
Look at this crowd. They love their rugby league up here.
Julian O'Neill assumed the key position, but at half-time was replaced by Walters with devastating effect. The Ipswich connection clicked impeccably. Langer's performance effectively deflecting Ricky Stewart's claims to the number 7 Test jumper. In reality, the Broncos' home and away hopes survived the 1993 Origin series relatively intact, but coaching staff remained unconvinced that the two could ever be happy bedfellows.
I don't think they can be quality bedfellows there, because the equation is distorted. When one team, or even two teams if you include Canberra, can provide so many representative players, which puts the club at risk for long periods of time in the season.
The only way to minimise that risk is by maintaining a depth of quality personnel. Without their stars, the Broncos were stunned by the Steelers in round 8. Illawarra skipping to a 22-8 lead before the Broncos' Mr. Fix-It weaved his magic. John Plath, the man dubbed Super Sub, scored 2 tries as Brisbane stormed home to win 24-22. The club's stocks, though, were sorely tested the next week due to Origin injuries and suspension. The fallout allowed the Bears to have a picnic at North Sydney Oval. With mobile Blues forward David Fairley his explosive best, the Broncos were handed a 40-20 drubbing. A similar result looked on the cards at ANZ against Wests. The Magpies skipped away to a 16-0 lead. But this high tackle on Matteson only managed to sting Brisbane into action.
Cuts him up the centre, he's looking for support. He'll find it outside in Chris Johns. Can he go all the way? You betcha he can, and Johns is over underneath the post.
John's second try ended a 36-point turnaround by the home side.
And if he gets it, it's a try. Super try.
The Broncos had exerted reasonable damage control. 2 wins from 3 starts in the most taxing period of the season. 1989 brings Wacko Jacko back to his hometown. It also sees the Broncos open what promises to be an enormous trophy cabinet. Victory over the Illawarra Steelers snares the Panasonic Cup.
Watson over the top. Miles takes it. Miles in for the try, and that should be it.
The first signs of what the Broncos mean to Brisbane start to appear. Sporting organisations pay millions of dollars each year to promote their teams and raise their public profile. In Queensland, the Broncos are the most visible example of this 1990s necessity. Their on-field success has put them in the enviable position whereby major corporate sponsors are happy not only to promote, but also pay the players through product endorsements. Everyone, it seems, wins.
Hey, Amos. Look in tomorrow's Courier Mail to find out how you can get your hands on one of these great Broncos footballs.
MMI.
We can go out and play then.
Thanks, Mum.
By associating a product with the Broncos, the advertiser projects a popular winning image.
Silvio's Broncos Pizza is back.
Puppy dog, woohoo!
The Broncos' public profile is also heightened through the product association.
It's an easy job to market because of the tremendous product that I've got to work with. The profile of the boys, the team, both on and off the field, the standard of play they play, it's entertaining, and also they're becoming professionals. They're maturing as footballers, and they're also maturing as commercial products off the field. So from that point of view, it's a very easy product. The boys are becoming more at ease with what they're doing, and more opportunities are occurring all the time.
Only from All Gas. Oh, sorry, Alf Gas.
We evaluate every proposal, what we charge, what he gives in return, and what the company can receive. But if it's not in line with the profile we're trying to create for a player, whether it be Alan or Julian or whoever, then we won't go ahead with the arrangement.
Oh, no, you're big out.
It would be a mistake, though, to think all the Broncos' public relations work is revenue-driven. Players happily devote much of their own time to charitable works.
You know, some of them we go and see a terminally ill, and they've only, they might have a week left or 6 months left. You know, they're only 12 years of age, so that soon makes you forget about your little worries, and that brings you right back down to earth, and you know, you just realise probably how fortunate you are. I know it sounds a little corny, but But you know, it really, I think the players benefit as much out of it as the kids do at times.
The players are the Broncos' flagship, and the hierarchy's insistence that a proper image be maintained can mean heavy demands and responsibilities away from the playing fields. That is something of which Coach Wayne Bennett is acutely aware.
The thing that would become secondary at this club if we weren't careful is a football team. And that goes right across all parts of the club, whether it's the demands from the public, whether it's the demands from management, whether it's the demands from the media. And I try to sit in the middle of all that and appreciate everybody needs a little bit of their time, but at the same time I try to protect them as much as I can so that they have time to themselves and they can do the thing they do best of all, and that's play football.
And play football is what they did in the early stages of the round 11 match against East at the football stadium. Initially, it wasn't a matter of if the Broncos were going to win, but by how much.
Fires it out to Renoff, he's straight through. He's just got speed to burn, Steve Renoff.
Whether it was off-field concerns or not, the intensity dropped off. East's suddenly back in it.
And Will races away for the try.
Right on full time, the Roosters were denied victory when an apparent fair try was disallowed. The coach's solution to the concentration problem?
Well, if we had the answers for it, I'd be out of a job.
6 days later, 57,000 gathered at ANZ Stadium for the local derby. Both Brisbane and the Gold Coast were minus their test stars, who were on duty in New Zealand. Thanks to a trademark charge, fill-in winger Brett Plowman barged over for the Broncos to win 14-6.
Peacock comes out and he gets up, starts to go, and he's in.
In round 13, Brisbane faced Manly at Brookvale Oval. It was a night they'd rather forget. The Sea Eagles dominated. Flamboyant Welshman John Devereux played a big part in the 24-8 win.
Here's the call from Devereux, and Devereux, he signals to the crowd, I'm going over for a try.
The Rabbitohs were those unfortunate enough to bear the brunt of the Brookvale bungle as Brisbane vented its fury at ANZ Stadium.
Khan goes down to the 30-metre line, stands up the fullback, puts the foot down even further and plunges in for another try.
Willie Khan crossed for 3 tries, but there was nothing sweeter than the speed and balance shown by Renoff in the record 54-8 win over South.
Renoff in and away, out and away, and down she goes. Renoff.
Then it was off to Newcastle for a joust with the Knights in the mud of Marathon.
They needed to win to stay in touch with the 5, and they've been playing pretty ordinarily too, and they were keyed up for a big game, and we expected it. And our forwards that day were outstanding in the wet, and certainly took control of the game and dominated the game, and we racked up 30-odd points in the wet, which was a pretty good performance in those conditions.
Wet weather football was the order of the day, but in between, some flashes of brilliance as the Broncos ran out winners 31-2.
For the corner, and easy for Willie Khan.
2/3 of the way through the season, and the Broncos had overcome a sloppy start and manoeuvred their way through the hazards of the representative matches. They sat at equal third, 2 wins away from the top of the table. Ready, they hoped, to finish the premiership fixtures in a flurry. Sacked as captain during the off-season, Wally Lewis announces during the week leading into the 1990 preliminary final clash with Canberra that he's quitting the club.
Quite easily the most disappointing moment of my life.
The Raiders thrashed Brisbane in the grand final qualifier, and a season punctuated by turmoil comes to a close.
Great strength, Meninga. Look at the big fella go. The fourth try.
Canterbury now under siege. Kevin Walters out the back. Julian O'Neill throws the dummy. He's over.
Several years ago, the Brisbane Broncos established what's considered the most comprehensive talent identification scheme in Australia. Under the guidance of former international Cyril Connell, a network of scouts was set up across the state.
Obviously, you look for the player with something a little bit different, and he stands out a little bit. But more than that, I think reports on his attitude to the game, and also his attitude to school, things in general, that all plays a very important part. But obviously, you're looking for someone who's perhaps a little bit different from the rest.
Up to 6 such players are recognised each year and awarded a much-coveted Broncos scholarship.
We normally offer scholarships to boys at school throughout Queensland on the condition they stay at their school, and on the condition that their attitude in schooling is well reported on by the school principal. We believe that if we've chosen wisely, their football will move along quite well.
Recent scholarship holders who have gone on to sign with the club include Butch Fatnauna and Wendell Saylor.
He gets it back to Saylor. Saylor dives for it, and he's in for the try.
Central to the success of the program is the direction given to it by Coordinator Connell.
We're very lucky with him in the sense that he's a great person. He's a very caring person, and I don't think there's a guy more suitable for the position that he has. He was a former school teacher, so his whole life's been involved with young people as well. He gets a great self-satisfaction out of that.
Off-field contributors like Connell get their greatest joy not through public recognition, but by witnessing the brand of football the Broncos are capable of producing. Against a 12-man Cronulla outfit in round 16, after Craig Diamond's send-off, the first half was full of such Bronco magic. Teams with 13 defenders have enough trouble containing Steve Renouf. The Pearl revelled in the extra space available. But again, the Brisbane concentration wavered.
Healy has a bit of a run. He's found a gap and he's over underneath the post.
In the dying stages, Cronulla had the chance to snatch the game, but the Broncos held on to win 38-34. Then came the top three shootout with Canterbury at ANZ. Brisbane's ability to keep the ball alive had the Bulldogs on the run. This, the main course in Renouf's 4-try feast.
Scott Wilson, he beats him. He's going for the corner. Renouf scores for Brisbane. Great try.
The Broncos' all-round superiority reinforced when a front rower backed up a winger's kick ahead to score. The back line on fire. Brisbane continually headed wide. Renouf setting up Hancock as a muzzled Bulldogs outfit went home to think again.
Length of the field try for the Broncos.
5 days later, Brisbane ventured to Parramatta, full of confidence. The Eels soon brought them back to reality with an intercept try.
Dragovic will score!
As brave as they were, Parra couldn't quite produce enough for an upset. The Broncos prevailed 15-8. From there, it was off to a chilly Canberra, where the mercury had dropped to 0, but the Friday night footy was hot.
Johns, he fends one off, he goes in, he's in!
That try was Brisbane's only joy in what many mistakenly believed was to be the grand final preview. Stewart's quick thinking and daily strength rewarded. Meninga's second half intercept was the turning point in a game won by the Raiders 20-4. Brisbane then lined up for its third Friday nighter in a row, and Balmain was rated an outside chance of an upset at ANZ Stadium. The Tigers did a good job to hold the Broncos for the first 18 minutes. From there, it was a one-way procession, the home side completing a 50-0 shutout.
Langer gets amongst the spoils, and Brisbane are bolting away.
It looks as though we lay down. My blokes tried right to the death, but they were simply too good.
But if Friday night was elation for the Broncos, Monday's news brought devastation.
The football season is over for Broncos star Steve Renouf, his jaw broken in 2 places at Mergen on the weekend.
Renouf was back home in Mergen for a 21st birthday party, and it was on the Sunday morning in his mother's front yard where the damage was done.
Apparently he must have got king hit, as far as I can make out. And when he came back in, I just said, "How you feeling?" He just said, "On my jaw."
X-rays confirmed the worst, and with a titanium plate inserted, it seemed the cruelest of blows for both Renouf and the Broncos. Although shocked by the nature of the injury, the players had no choice but to regroup and face Penrith in yet another night game. It was a dour match in which the 34-14 scoreline did not reflect the closeness of the contest. All kinds of final 5 permutations and combinations faced the clubs going into the last round of fixtures. The The last Broncos-St George match was a promoter's dream, and despite inclement weather, an ANZ Stadium record crowd of 57,999 turned out to watch the 1992 grand finalists do battle. The Dragons ensured at least 2 bites of the premiership cherry with their 16-10 win. The Broncos' defeat, meaning any more slip-ups, and their 1993 season would be over.
Puts it down.
So, after 176 matches of high-octane rugby league since March 12, just 2 premiership points separated the top 5 teams on the table. A finishing flurry by Canterbury over Canberra gave the Bulldogs the minor premiership. The Raiders and St George to meet in the major semi, with Manly finishing ahead of the Broncos on for and against. Brisbane had been sentenced to a month of knife-edged knockout football if they were to successfully defend the cup, a task no team had achieved before. The Broncos begin 1991 in the most promising fashion, a second pre-season trophy coming courtesy of their win over eventual premiers Penrith.
Kevin Waller's try! That could win it! Great try!
But the promise is unfulfilled. The Broncos are unable to claim a final 5 berth.
Smith will be dropping for the try.
It's the lull before the storm that's about to brew in 92.
Quickly, Lewis. He sees the opportunity. He might go all the way. The crowd's going to urge him. Lewis.
Since the inception of the Brisbane Broncos in the Winfield Cup 6 years ago, numerous players have donned the club's first-grade colours. Many are old boys now, familiar faces from the past, whose legendary efforts in helping to forge a proud Broncos tradition will long be remembered.
Darling for the line. Now he's gone in field. Now he's come back. And Curry puts it down.
Trevor Gilmeister, who joins Penrith next season, is the latest addition to the Old Boys honour roll. His exit from the Broncos a result of the economic expediency clubs have to exercise in the ruthless 90s. Such partings are rarely easy.
There's been some tough decisions made here for different reasons, and that was right up there with them. Mainly because of the guy that he is, who was 100% person and has given nothing but his best for this club. And there was
St George opened the 93 final series in sensational style against Canberra. Mark Coyne's support play was crucial in 2 Saints tries, the first to Ricky Walford. The Queensland Origin centre then laid on a gem for skipper Mick Potter as the Dragons raced to a 15-0 half-time lead from which the Ricky Stewartless Raiders never recovered.
He scores!
The Broncos made their sudden death semi-debut against Manly. It was a one-sided affair. Brisbane home 36-10. But the victory came at a hefty price. Terry Madison dislocated his shoulder and Glenn Lazarus sprained an ankle in the dying minutes.
Oh dear, the left ankle went under.
A desperate week of physio for Lazarus preceded the major elimination final. The battle with his injured ankle was touch and go. On match day, it was decided that the Brick with Eyes would play against Canberra. He lasted just 6 minutes, but the Broncos rallied, making the Raiders pay maximum price for 3 missed tackles in the first half.
Walters, away for Sailor. Mandruku on Sailor. Sailor, he goes in to score.
Brisbane led 24-0. The contest all but over despite a second-half surge by Canberra. A late try by Kevin Walters sealed it 30-12, and the Premiers were still alive.
He grubs it into the end goal and Walters was there to snatch a try.
They'll probably play St George in the grand final and it'll be a beauty, but I'd have to say that on today's performance, if they start like that, it'll be hard to beat.
The following day, Saints continued their march to the grand final with victory over minor premiers Canterbury. Mark Coyne was again instrumental. A miracle pass to Goulet ensured the Dragons a week off before the grand final and relegated the Bulldogs to the prelim final against Brisbane. That came last Sunday. Lazarus lost his battle with the city's most talked-about ankle, but the big boost for Brisbane, the return of Terry Madison and Steve Renouf. It was a dream return for Renouf 5 weeks after breaking his jaw.
It's Steve Renouf!
But Brisbane's early advantage turned into a 16-10 half-time deficit when top dog Terry Lamb set up McCracken. But after a Langer try brought a 16-all stalemate, it was the skipper himself who provided the edge. The match, though, still in the balance until Alan Cann catapulted the Broncos into the grand final.
5-0! Somebody stop him! He'll run out of the stadium!
Grand final week began with the Broncos given time off and allowed to rev their engines in somewhat different style. Some fans, however, reached boiling point when they discovered their long wait for the precious few grand final tickets available was to be without reward.
Missed out by 1. Which is bloody ridiculous, I reckon.
The fans' disappointment tempered at least by the thought their heroes would be at the stadium on Sunday, defending the cup. Early 92, Glenn Lazarus lands in Brisbane in what is a godsend for a team searching for upfront starch. The Broncos are on the way up. They climb every mountain in a vintage season.
They won't catch him. He's heading for the corner, and he's over. Here come the Broncos again. That's a lovely move, and this is Renouf. We know this fella could move. Home gets the ball to Kevin Walters, and Walters is in under the sticks.
Sydney, the venue for the 2000 Olympics. But there's plenty more sporting history to be written here before then. One of those chapters was completed at the Sydney Football Stadium today. 2 teams negotiated the minefield that is the New South Wales Rugby League competition to reach the grand final. St George versus the Brisbane Broncos. The same clubs that produced a superb finale last year were back again. The Broncos ready to underline their status as the finest rugby league team of the 90s.
If tension filled the Broncos' minds this morning, it was well camouflaged. A function for family and friends at the team hotel and no hint of restrictions from the coach as players mingled with loved ones. Supporters, well known and otherwise, feasted on the atmosphere at another breakfast function. This tour of duty also one of enjoyment.
Go the Broncos!
Tennis isn't the normal pre-match build-up, but at least the Lazarus ankle came through unscathed. More serious concerns were then attended to as the match drew closer. A far sterner-looking outfit arrived at the Sydney Football Stadium with one thing in mind. Some were looking for another type of success.
Anybody wants a ticket?
It didn't look as if he'd have much trouble selling his wares. Teetotaler Wayne Bennett was the duty boy. The coach fully aware his team needed one more meal to complete that menu. Inside, the game's final curtain raiser was the queen of rock and roll. King celebrated. The Broncos, the very finest defenders of the cup.